Hey everyone, we're at Dean's Diner in Blairsville, Pennsylvania. This was always a great halfway point stop when I used to commute between Pittsburgh and Penn State when I was in college.
Tonight we're at a state college for a different reason. I'm actually going up there to work.
So I did the Pittsburgh to Penn State trip like 100 times, but that got me thinking, what kind of other retro roadside stops did students coming from Philadelphia on the other side of the state have to visit on their way to college?
So we looked at some maps and it turns out there is a great roadside attraction. Here's a fun fact about Penn State's famous Mount Nittany. Did you know that Nittany comes from an Algonquin word meaning mountain? So it's literally Mount Mountain. That's ridiculous. Anyway, some fresh fallen snow set the scene for our road trip to Duncannon, Pennsylvania. If you're heading to Penn State from Philadelphia on Route 22, after crossing the Susquehanna River on the Clarks Ferry Bridge, you're going to want to take the first exit onto US 15 North. From there, it's just a quick 5-minute detour off the main road to this, a giant roadside dragon. He sits just off Susquehanna Trail Road, turning the heads of drivers toward Lumberjack's Kitchen, the restaurant that put him here. Funnily enough, I actually already have a connection with this guy. A couple years ago, I worked behind the scenes on the Great Pennsylvania Volkswagen Tour, featuring the Volkswagen, which is exactly what it sounds like. A vintage VW Westfalia decked out and painted to promote voter issues in PA. And this was one of the stops.
We're out here to slay the gerrymander.
Formerly purple and recently repainted to red, gray, and black, it rises over 20 feet tall and it's covered in scales. It's anchored to the ground in 2 spots and there's plenty of room surrounding it for travelers to stop and take photos. And so, one point of nomenclature here. We, along with the Volkswagen and Roadside America, have been calling this thing a dragon since day one, but upon closer inspection, we think it's actually, technically, a sea serpent. There's 2 pieces of evidence to this change-up. 1, it has no legs, but it does have fins, which would presumably be used for swimming. And 2, it actually has an identical twin in Minnesota. That one's green instead of red, but it's the same mold. It sits by a lake in the town of Crosby, and the name of that lake? It's literally Serpent Lake. So that seems pretty conclusive. So it's as though this one swam up from the murky depths of the Susquehanna and made itself right at home here next to Lumberjack's Kitchen. So, the Lumberjack Kitchen. You'd think that if they had a giant roadside attraction outside, that it'd be, maybe a giant lumberjack or something. So we just had to ask, why giant serpents?
Many years ago, we have another restaurant on Eisenhower Boulevard in Harrisburg, and the dragon was down there at a miniature golf course.
This is Xanthia Winters. She and her sister, Irene, manage the restaurant here. The other restaurant she's referring to is Angie's Diner. It's on 1360 Eisenhower Boulevard in Harrisburg. Just down the road here is Zeke's Exxon, and the mini golf course was right next to that.
And when the miniature golf course was closed and shut down, the owner used to come into Angie's as a customer, and we bought it from him.
We stopped in at Angie's too. It's about 20 minutes from Lumberjack's Kitchen. Grabbed some coffee and pancakes and talked to Ken, our server, who told us it's an original diner car from all the way back in 1947. Since then, a larger bar and lounge has been built around it, but you can still dine in the original space. He didn't remember the dragon or the mini golf. It turns out, back at Lumberjack's Kitchen, Angie was actually there, behind the scenes in the kitchen. She was a little camera shy, but she let us take this photo of her with Xanthia and Xanthia's son, Christopher. Then she told us the story of how she got the serpent. The way she remembers it, the owner of the mini golf course came in one night and was talking about getting rid of it. He wanted a few thousand for it. A customer at Angie's had just paid with a $100 bill, so, half jokingly, Angie slapped that down on his table and told him she'd give him $100 for it. And what do you know? To everyone's surprise, he accepted the offer.
Not knowing where we would put it, she just said, okay, I'll take it.
So this thing changed hands for $100, but
it was a couple $1,000s to move it up here. It was an oversized load because of the underpass in Dolphin, so they had to get a special permit to move it up here.
Angie estimates close to $4,000 after all was said and done.
A lot of people say, was it Chinese before? No. It just ended up here because at the time there was nothing there.
Oh, yeah.
So it made sense. Just put it there and figure out what we're going to do with it later.
The Serpent is actually a product of Sparta, Wisconsin, from a company called Creative Display that sculptor Jerry Vetras would eventually incorporate into FAST. FAST standing for fiberglass, animals, sculptures, trademarks. They specialize in fiberglass molds of all shapes and sizes, from this little frog with a giant tongue that we spotted at Page's Crossing while shooting the Runaway Train episode, all the way up to this massive muskie in Hayward, Wisconsin that is, yes, the largest fiberglass statue in the world. Anyway, Angie and her crew got it put together around 2003, and here it's sat ever since. So then, a big question.
Do you know if the dragon has a name?
We never named it.
We were thinking maybe we could call him the Susquehanna Serpent, or Sussy for short.
Okay.
Yes, just like his Scottish ancestor before him, a new and mysterious cryptid arises from the depths of the Susquehanna. Come hither to Duncannon, and perchance you can catch a glimpse of Sussy. So, Sussy arrived in the early 2000s when the restaurant was called Burgundy's, and some might remember that it was painted a different color back then. But Burgundy's changed to Lumberjacks in 2014, drawing inspiration from the region's history.
There used to be Lumberjacks out on the river on here, so when we were looking for a name to rename it from Burgundy's and make it more for the local area, we were just looking around on the Susquehanna River. You'll see there was Lumberjacks a long, long time ago out on the river with the timber and all that during the old canal days.
The restaurant and bar are decorated with tons of unique antiques and vintage curiosities. This desk is a recent addition. It belonged to Xanthia's father, who recently passed away. So now a piece of his history lives on in their family restaurant. And, oh yes, the pies? Homemade from Angie's recipes.
I got caramel apple cheesecake.
It's all a vestige of the past that's becoming rarer and rarer these days. A family-owned business that's still operated by the original family. And with the sometimes confused as Chinese dragon outside and the firmly American name, turns out the best kept secret here is that the truly special menu items are the ones from Xanthia and Angie's heritage, Greek.
All right, because Angie and her family are Greek, I really wanted to try, a Greek influenced dish, so I got a hero. The house-made tzatziki sauce, unbelievably good.
The food here is really special, and among a bunch of traditional comfort food sit some amazing Greek dishes.
It's the best tzatziki I've ever had.
So we do have a lot of the Greek noodles, the salads. We do specials once in a while featuring Greek stuff.
So if the giant dragon, Sussy, came in here for a meal, what do you think you would order?
A long time ago, we used to feature a dragon burger.
What?
With fire roasted, like sauteed onions, jalapenos, pepper jack cheese. So maybe that, or maybe just meatloaf, chicken and waffles.
We've also heard the baklava is not to be missed.
But it's Greek, so we kind of eyeball things. No measurements, so you just look at it. If it looks right, it goes.
No measurements, if it looks right, it goes. That's the very same approach that sent this roadside serpent slithering up the Susquehanna here to begin with. And take it from us, come for the serpent, stay for the food.
So, that's Sussy. Before we go, one last rumination on Penn State, if you'll allow me. A lot has changed since I graduated in 2010. Looks like COVID killed Gumby's, that's messed up. Lots of sorta soulless monoliths of modern architecture have started crowding the skyline. Plenty of cranes erected to throw up even more. This one here stands where my cool old apartment used to be, so much for that. But while on the surface that might seem a bit sad, thankfully the heart of my Penn State experience is still there. The squirrels are still fearless, the best bar is still down these stairs, and the Graduate is still standing. I went to a party there one night over a decade ago. This was back when this coffee shop was a 7-Eleven and there was a secret door in the back that led into the lobby so you could sneak in without the passcode to the front door. Anyway, that night I spent hours talking to the coolest girl ever in the ratty old college kitchen there. Her name was Cassie. She had really short hair back then. We both went our separate ways that night, but 7 years later, in 2017, we ran into each other again in Pittsburgh and both went, hey, wait a minute, we didn't make the mistake of going our separate ways again. And so the roads that lead to all detours start somewhere, and that's where ours did. So to the east of Dean's Diner, and to the west of Sussy, right here in Penn State, is where our trip began. And it's nice to drop in from time to time to check out the old haunts that haven't changed one bit. Cheers, everyone, and we'll see you on the next Quick Detour.
Hey, that's my line.